My sister pushed me out of my wheelchair at our family reunion. Stop faking for attention. Everyone laughed as I lay on the ground. What they didn't know was that my doctor was standing right behind them. He cleared his throat and said 5 words that ended everything. The concrete hit my elbow first, then my hip, then the side of my skull. Not hard enough to knock me out, but hard enough that the backyard tilted and stayed tilted. The whole reunion sliding sideways like a photograph someone had hung crooked on purpose. 60 people in my aunt's yard, maybe more. Some were laughing. A few had their phones up already. That reflexive lift, recording before they'd even decided what they were recording. My sister Danielle stood over me, breathing hard, her face flushed pink from the heat and the wine coolers and whatever she'd been telling herself for the last 2 years. Stop faking for attention, she said, loud enough that the people grilling 3 yards over turned to look, loud enough that my name came out of her like an accusation. Get up, Avery. I lay there on the sun-baked patio stone. My wheelchair was tipped on its side 2 feet away, one wheel still turning slow in the August heat. My right leg had folded under me at an angle that sent white light up the back of my spine, the kind of pain I'd spent 28 months learning how to breathe around, the kind that erased the edges of my vision and turned every sound into something far away and underwater. And the reunion just kept going around me like I was a lawn chair that had blown over in the wind. Somebody turned the speaker back up. A kid chased a kickball past my head, laughing, the smell of charcoal and cut grass mixed with the copper taste of blood where I'd bitten the inside of my cheek on the way down. Get up, Danielle said again, and I could hear it underneath the words, the satisfaction, the relief of finally being right out loud in front of everyone who mattered. Showtime. Drop the act. Let's all watch you drop the act. I tried to push myself up. My arms shook and gave. The patio stone had peeled the skin off both my palms, and I could see grit pressed into the meat of my left hand, little beads of blood rising up around it like seeds. Look at this, Danielle announced, turning to the family the way a lawyer turns to a jury. And this was her closing statement, the one she'd been rehearsing in her head at every holiday for 2 years. She's been milking this wheelchair thing the entire time. 2 years. Off an accident that nobody even saw happen. I saw the bottom of the stairs, my mom said from somewhere near the food table, her voice thin and worn flat by 2 years of family dinners exactly like this one. I'm the one who found you. Finding her at the bottom of the stairs isn't the same as watching her fall, Danielle said, not even looking at her. For all any of us know, she lay down there on purpose and waited for somebody to walk by. The crowd murmured, agreement, consideration. It made a kind of sense, didn't it, if you wanted it to. My cousin Devin, 24, still living rent-free in my uncle's finished basement, stepped out of the circle of relatives with his chest puffed up like he'd been waiting all afternoon for his cue. I literally saw her walking at the Mariano's on Tui like last month, in the produce section, just walking around picking out tomatoes like it was nothing. Heads nodded. The murmur swelled into something with a current to it. Of course. Knew it. Always figured. Had a feeling. That was physical therapy. I managed from the ground, and my voice came out smaller and thinner than I wanted, which only made it worse. I've told all of you about the outpatient program at the clinic. They have me practice short distances with a walker. There are sessions, there are notes, you can— Sure they do. Danielle kicked the wheel of my overturned chair. The aluminum frame rang out like a struck bell across the quiet yard. Meanwhile, you've been cashing disability checks and living in mom's spare room rent-free for 2 years. Ordering DoorDash on her card, playing your little games half the night, living the dream while the rest of us get up and actually work for a living. Because I can't work. Because you won't. She crouched closer, and I could smell the sugary wine on her breath and the sunscreen on her skin. There's a difference, and every single person standing here is tired of pretending there isn't. My uncle Glenn, my dad's older brother, the one who sold commercial insurance and drove a leased Audi and gave the same speech about personal responsibility every Thanksgiving, pulled out his phone and held it up high like he was documenting a break-in for the adjuster. I'm recording this, he announced to the whole yard. For the record, we have all been enabling this for far too long, and somebody finally has to stand up and say the truth out loud, even if it's hard to hear. Thank you, Glenn, somebody said. I looked around for one person, anyone, one face that wasn't hard. My mom stood by the table wringing a paper napkin to confetti in her hands, her mouth opening and closing. My Aunt Diane, the one who'd organized this entire reunion, who'd called me 4 separate times to make sure I came even after I'd tried twice to bow out, stood with her arms folded and her lips pressed into a flat white line of judgment. My grandmother sat in the shade of the maple in her folding chair, fanning herself with a paper plate, watching me the exact way you'd watch a TV show you'd already decided you were tired of. Not one of them moved an inch toward me. The doctor said, I started. Maybe, Danielle cut in. She was rolling now, lit up, feeding off the faces turned toward her. Maybe you'll walk again someday. Maybe it's permanent. Maybe. You've been dining out on maybe for 2.5 years while mom quietly goes broke trying to fix something that was never actually broken. She does look awful. awfully comfortable in that chair," my grandmother offered, loud to the whole assembly, fanning herself. "Like she's had a great deal of practice getting comfortable." "Because I'm in it 12 hours a day," I said. "By choice. Obviously, that's the dream, right?" Danielle reached down and yanked my wallet out of the jacket pocket where it had fallen open on the stone beside me. She held it up over her head, flipped it open with her thumb like an investigator on a TV show. "See this, everybody? Disability card. $912 a month, every month. Plus mom covers all the rest of it. Rent, groceries, the special equipment, the therapy copays, the gas for that ridiculous van. I have medical bills," I said. My throat was closing in on itself. My hands were shaking, and it wasn't only from the fall anymore. "You have excuses." She threw the wallet at me. It bounced off my chest and landed open on the stone, my license staring up at the sky, the photo from before, from back when I could stand at the DMV counter without holding on to anything at all. "The gravy train ends today, Avery. Right here, right now, in front of everyone. So there's witnesses." And the crowd started to clap. Actually clap. A real round of applause, like Danielle had just delivered the big inspirational speech in a movie about grit and personal accountability and refusing to make excuses for yourself. "Danielle, that's enough now." My mom finally stepped forward half a step, but there was nothing behind her voice. She sounded like she was asking for permission instead of giving an order, and everyone could hear it. "No, Mom, she's bleeding you dry and you can't even see it." Danielle's whole tone went soft and careful and reasonable when she turned to face our mother, all daughterly concern. "Therapy 3 times a week. The braces. That van you bought her. You took a second mortgage out on a house you've lived in for 31 years. You're 63 years old. You'll be paying that loan off until you're 80. And for what?" Mom's face went red. She didn't say that it wasn't true. I hadn't even known about the second mortgage until that exact second. "I never asked you to do that," I said to my mother, and my voice cracked on it. "You didn't stop her either, did you?" Danielle pointed a finger down at me, straight as the barrel of something. "You just kept taking, kept playing the part, kept letting everyone else carry you so you could sit there and be the tragic one." She lowered herself down until she was right in my face. "Stand up, right now, or I swear I will call the police and report you for disability fraud, insurance fraud, whatever fraud they want to charge. You can explain the act to a judge." I can't. The pain in my leg had crossed over into the wrong kind, the deep, structural, something has torn kind that I recognized from the worst weeks after the surgery, the kind that was going to cost thousands of dollars and weeks of my life to put back together again. "Stand up." And then the family started to chant it. "Stand up. Stand up. Stand up." 40 voices, 50. The neighbors from 2 houses down drifting over to see what the commotion was. Kids filming it sideways on their phones. My Aunt Diane clapping out the rhythm with her hands over her head like a cheer captain at a pep rally. I stayed down on the concrete because there was nothing else my body could physically do. Because my right leg hadn't had full feeling in it for 28 months. Because the titanium hardware in my spine made half of those movements simply impossible. Because everything Danielle was screaming at me came out of a place that had never once asked a single question, never once read one page of the records, never once cared enough to want to understand. My leg pulsed with every beat of my heart. Danielle grabbed a fistful of my shirt and hauled me halfway up off the ground, her face inches from mine. "I am done. I am done watching you manipulate this entire family. You are a liar and a con artist and that's my patient." The chant stopped. Everything stopped. Danielle's hand stayed knotted in the front of my shirt, but she had gone completely still. A man had stepped out of the edge of the crowd. Mid-50s, gray coming in at the temples, khakis and a plain navy shirt, wireframe glasses, holding a paper cup of gas station coffee like he'd been standing at the back of the party the whole time, quietly taking in the show, which, I understood now, was exactly what he had been doing. His face was completely, unsettlingly calm. Danielle's fingers loosened. She let go of my shirt and I dropped back down onto the stone. "Who the hell are you?" she demanded. He took a slow sip of his coffee. "Dr. Adrian Vale." He cleared his throat, unhurried, and the 5 words came out level and quiet and absolutely final. "I performed Avery's spinal fusion." The yard went silent. Not quiet. Silent. You could hear the burgers spitting and curling on the abandoned grill, a dog barking 2 houses over, the speaker still playing some country song that nobody on earth was listening to anymore. "I also oversee the physical therapy and the pain management," he continued into that silence. "And I consult on the case with the neurologist, Dr. Omar Haddad, at Northwestern. I've been treating Avery since roughly 40 hours after the fall. For those keeping track, that was 28 months ago." My Aunt Diane laughed. It came out high and brittle and wrong. "Well, doctor, you must be very proud of yourself. Your patient seems to walk around just fine when nobody's looking, doesn't she?" Dr. Vale smiled. It did not get anywhere near his eyes. "Actually," he said, and he reached into his pocket for his phone, "there's something everyone in this yard should see." He held it up over the crowd. An X-ray filled the screen. "This is Avery's lumbar lumbar spine, L3 and L4. He spread 2 fingers across the glass to zoom in. See these rods? 4 of them. And these screws here, here, here. 12 in total. That's the spinal fusion that I performed personally 16 months ago at the University of Chicago. The surgery ran a little over 7 hours. The recovery ran 6 months, and that was the fast version. Nobody spoke. Danielle had gone the color of the patio stone. The reason Avery can stand for a few minutes during a therapy session, he went on, is that a team of us has spent more than a year slowly, deliberately retraining the body to manage very short distances with a walker. Right now, that is approximately 40 meters. After that, the nerve damage produces pain severe enough to force a complete stop. Call it 5 minutes of motion on a good day. After those 5 minutes, the damaged nerves begin firing incorrectly, and what Avery experiences is what we call neuropathic pain. I want you to picture someone driving roofing nails into your leg while running an electrical current through it at the same time. That is the reward for the walk to the produce section, Devin. He swiped to a second image without looking up. This is the sciatic nerve, right side. See this darker region in here? He pointed. That is permanent damage from the fall. It is why the right leg has almost no proprioception, no sense of where it is in space, which is why Avery cannot bear real weight on it for any length of time. The nerve misfires, sometimes with no warning at all. The leg simply gives out underneath her, which, incidentally, is one of the most likely explanations for an unwitnessed fall down a flight of stairs. My cousin Devin had quietly peeled away from the back of the circle and was already half walking, half jogging toward the house. The brace Avery wears, Dr. Vale said, the one that costs $4,500 and that insurance only partly covers, provides some stability. It is not a cure. There is no cure. This is the rest of Avery's life, every single day of it. His voice never rose. Clinical, even. Every day hurts. Every step is a gamble that the leg holds. Every hour in that chair is a reminder of something that got taken away and is not coming back. He looked directly at Danielle. But sure, she's faking it for the attention. He raised the phone higher so the whole yard could see the screen, then swiped one more time. And then there's this one. I started recording the moment I walked through the gate into this lovely family gathering. That was about 9 minutes ago now. He pressed play with his thumb. Danielle's own voice came out of the little speaker, tinny and unmistakable. Stop faking for attention. The wet sound of me hitting the stone. The laughter that followed. The first ragged round of the chant. He let it run for a full 30 seconds while 60 people listened to themselves, and then he stopped it. I recorded all of it, he said calmly into the silence. The assault, the verbal abuse, the crowd joining in, the public humiliation of a disabled woman on the ground by her own family while children filmed it for fun. He turned his head toward my Uncle Glenn. You're not the only one who came here today to collect evidence. Uncle Glenn's phone was still up, still recording, and his hand had started to visibly shake. Danielle stumbled backward and caught herself on the edge of the picnic table. Everybody thought, the evidence. It all seemed, you thought wrong, Doctor. Vale's voice dropped a few cold degrees. No, let me correct that. You didn't think at all. You did not ask one single question in 2.5 years. You did not request one medical record. You did not pick up the phone and call one of her doctors, any of us, and we would have answered. You did not spend 10 minutes trying to understand what your sister has been living through. You decided she was a liar because it was easier than accepting that sometimes terrible random things happen to ordinary people, and there is nobody to blame and no story that makes it make sense. He crouched down beside me with the easy, automatic precision of a man who had done it 10,000 times. Can you move, Avery? I nodded. Barely. Rate the pain for me. 1 to 10. 8, I whispered. Maybe 9. He ran careful hands along my knee and down to my ankle, pressing, watching my face. His expression hardened into something grim. Possible ligament tear on top of everything else. You're going to need imaging tonight. He looked up at the crowd of relatives. Someone bring her chair over here. Now. For a second, nobody moved. Then my mom moved first. She crossed the patio, righted the overturned wheelchair, and rolled it over to us, tears running down her face without a single sound coming out of her. Dr. Vale lifted me up off the stone and back into the seat with that same trained, gentle, exact care, the kind that comes from doing it 1,000 times for 1,000 people. The crowd stood frozen where they were. A few of them were crying now. Most were staring hard at their own shoes. My grandmother had stopped fanning herself, the paper plate hanging forgotten in her hand. Dr. Vale straightened up to his full height and addressed the whole yard at once. I came here today because Avery asked me to come. His voice carried clean across the grass to every corner of the gathering. She knew this was coming. She's heard the whispers at every holiday. She's seen the looks across the table. She's read the Facebook posts the rest of you thought she didn't see. The comments at Christmas, the little jokes at Easter about how convenient her timing always is. Danielle's mouth opened and nothing came out of it at all. Avery asked me here, he went on, because she knew with total certainty that her own family did not believe her, and she was right. She was completely right. correct. He turned in a slow circle and looked at every single face in that yard, one at a time. So she asked her surgeon, the person who opened up her back and bolted metal into her spine to keep her from spending the rest of her life paralyzed, to drive out to a family reunion, to stand at the back, to watch, and to document. He took a business card out of his wallet and held it out to Danielle between two fingers. That's my attorney, Margaret Liu. She's a partner at Latham & Watkins, and she handles disability rights litigation, and she is very good at it. I will be filing a police report tomorrow morning for the assault of a disabled person. Alongside it, a civil suit for battery and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Danielle stared at the little white card in his hand like it might bite her if she touched it. She didn't take it. He set it down on the picnic table instead. My testimony as the treating physician will be, I expect, fairly persuasive to a jury, he said. I have complete records, the surgeries, the therapy notes for every single session, every appointment going back 28 months, the x-rays, the MRIs, the nerve conduction studies, the pain logs, 2.5 years of documentation that proves, past the point of any honest argument, that Avery is disabled and always will be. Then he turned to my Uncle Glenn. I'll also be needing your video, the one you recorded for the record. Thank you for making it, genuinely. It shows the coordinated intimidation of a disabled person and group harassment with a clear ringleader, and it is now part of my file. Uncle Glenn lowered his phone slowly. His face had gone gray and slack. Dr. Vale faced the crowd one final time. Everyone who joined that chant is on camera. Everyone who laughed. Everyone who lifted a phone to film it instead of helping. Everyone who stood in this yard and watched a disabled veteran get shoved out of her chair onto concrete and then surrounded by her own blood relatives and told to perform. He paused and let it sit. I'd think very hard about how that's going to play on the local news this week, because this is precisely the kind of story those stations run with for days. A disabled veteran, yes, Avery served 4 years in the Army National Guard before the fall, assaulted by her own family at a reunion because they had collectively decided with no evidence that she was faking. She's not even a veteran, Danielle started, grasping. Army National Guard, 2015 to 2019, honorable discharge. Those records live in the VA system, Dr. Vale said, which means this matter can become a federal one very quickly. His smile was thin as a scalpel. Did you know that assaulting a disabled veteran carries enhanced penalties in this state and at the federal level? I didn't either, until Margaret walked me through all of it last week, when Avery asked me to come. Dead silence. The burgers were fully burning now, black smoke curling up off the grill into the August sky. Nobody reached over to flip them or pull them off. Dr. Vale moved around behind my chair and took the handles in both hands. We're leaving, he said simply. Avery has an appointment at the emergency room, which I will be documenting tonight as assault-related injuries. Those bills attach directly to the suit. The brace is damaged in the fall. That's another $4,500. The chair frame is bent. Call it $3,200 more. We will itemize every cent of it. He started pushing me up the path toward the driveway. Behind us, 60 relatives stood in the same loose, broken circle, the same people who had chanted at me to stand up, who had called me a liar to my face on the ground, who had applauded my sister for shoving me onto concrete, all of them slowly arriving at the understanding that the person they had just humiliated for faking a disability had recorded on professional advice, every last one of them committing a crime in broad daylight. Wait, Danielle's voice cracked clean down the middle. Wait, Avery, please. I'm sorry. I didn't know. We didn't know. None of us knew. I did not turn around. Dr. Vale kept pushing me steadily up the path. Avery, please. We reached the van, the modified Honda Odyssey with the wheelchair ramp folded up against the side door, the van my mother had, in fact, taken a second mortgage on a paid-off house to buy. Dr. Vale eased me carefully into the passenger seat, then collapsed the chair down and loaded it into the back, and came around to get in and start the engine. Danielle ran up across the lawn and banged the flat of her hand against my window. Avery, please. I'm so sorry. Please just talk to me. I looked at her through the glass. My sister. The person I had shared a bathroom with for 16 years. The person who taught me to ride a bike in the church parking lot, holding the seat and lying about letting go. The person who stood up next to me at my wedding before the divorce and cried during the toast. The person who had, 20 minutes ago, pushed me out of my wheelchair onto concrete in front of our entire extended family because she had decided, without ever asking, that I was a fraud. I lowered the window 2 inches. You want to know the worst part? I said quietly. She nodded. Fast. Desperate. Hanging on it. I called you 3 times after the surgery. I left you voicemails. I texted you the dates. I invited you to come to my appointments so you could hear the prognosis straight from him. I tipped my head an inch toward Dr. Vale in the driver's seat, so you wouldn't have to take my word for any of it. You never came. You never called back. You decided I was lying without ever once asking for a single piece of proof. You chose to believe I was a con artist instead of believing your own sister was hurt. I just thought, no, No, I said. You didn't. That's the entire problem. You never did. I rolled the window back up against her hand. Dr. Vale pulled out of the driveway and onto the street, and I watched her get smaller in the side mirror until the turn took her away. The emergency room at Northwestern Memorial was packed for a Saturday evening, but Dr. Vale walked me straight through triage, spoke quietly with the attending, a Dr. Sandra Pike he apparently knew from medical conferences, and had me in an exam room within 20 minutes. The scans confirmed it. Torn lateral collateral ligament in the right knee, another surgery scheduled for that Thursday, another 6 weeks of recovery, another setback in the slow, grinding, 2 steps back work of clawing back any small fraction of the mobility I had left. Why did you really come today? I asked him while we waited on the orthopedic consult to read the films. He was quiet for a moment, turning his coffee cup in his hands. I've treated spinal patients for 26 years, he finally said. I have watched more families than I can count come apart over an injury like yours. I've watched them decide it is easier to believe someone is faking than to accept that life is random and cruel, and there is no villain to point a finger at. I came so that yours would never be able to say they didn't know. The police report was filed Monday morning. Detective Ray Brennan of the Evanston Police Department called me Tuesday afternoon. I've gone through the video, the doctor's statement, the photos, and the medical records, he said. I'll be honest with you, this is about as clear-cut as one of these ever gets. Your sister put her hands on you and pushed you out of your wheelchair and caused a documented new injury. In this state, that's aggravated battery against a person with a disability. Class 2 felony. What happens now? We issue a warrant. She'll be arrested, then arraigned, probably inside 48 hours. With video evidence this clean, the state's attorney will move forward whether or not you personally want to pursue it. I want you prepared for that. I don't know what I want, I admitted. You don't have to know today, he said, but I'll tell you something. After 23 years of this job, families like the one in that video don't change without real consequences. Not feelings, consequences. I knew he was right. Danielle was still my sister, and I knew he was right. She was arrested Wednesday morning and posted bail by that same afternoon. Her lawyer, some personal injury guy she knew from her gym, called me Thursday at home. My client wants to apologize and make all of this right, he said smoothly. She's devastated. If you would be willing to ask the state to drop the charges, this could all go away quietly. I'm not the one pressing them, I said. The state is. You should talk to them. Right. But if you went on record telling them this was all a misunderstanding between sisters. It wasn't a misunderstanding, I said. It was an assault on video in front of 60 people with a recording of her saying my name and telling me to stand up. There is no gray area in it. She pushed me out of my wheelchair because she decided I was faking a disability. That is not a misunderstanding between sisters. That is a choice she made out loud. I hung up. The civil suit was filed that Friday. Margaret Liu, 51, Stanford Law, 20 years of disability rights cases behind her, sat across a wide desk from me in a downtown office with a window full of the gray Chicago River. We're suing Danielle individually for battery and intentional infliction of emotional distress, she said, sliding a folder across to me. That part is straightforward, but I want to talk to you about something bigger, if you'll let me. What do you mean, bigger? Your Uncle Glenn, your Aunt Diane, every adult who joined that chant. They created a coordinated, hostile situation and participated in the harassment of a disabled person. Under the law in this state, that is actionable, and I can name them. You want me to sue my whole family? I want you to send a message that actually lands and stays landed. She leaned forward over the desk. Avery, I have handled hundreds of these cases. Disabled people abused, accused, isolated by relatives who've quietly decided they're faking. It is far more common than anyone wants to believe, and it almost never gets reported. You know why? Because the disabled person is usually isolated, financially dependent on the very people abusing them, and terrified of losing the only support system they've got. So they stay quiet, and it keeps happening, and it gets worse. They stay quiet, I repeated. You don't have to. You have something almost none of them ever have. You have documentation. You have a surgeon willing to walk into a courtroom and testify. You have video of the entire thing. You have the ability to drag this out of the dark and into the light, on your terms. The story broke on the local news that weekend. Disabled veteran assaulted by sister at family reunion. Doctor recorded everything on camera. The footage went up online Monday morning, faces blurred out by the station except for Danielle's and mine, but you could still see the push, the fall, hear her voice, hear the chant rise up behind her. 3 million views by Tuesday night. The national outlets had it by Wednesday. By Thursday, I was politely turning down a producer from Good Morning America. I didn't want to be famous. I had never wanted to be famous. I had wanted for 28 months exactly one thing, which was to be believed. And Danielle's life came apart faster than any trial ever could have managed it. She was a registered nurse, 11 years at a hospital that printed the words compassionate care on every wall, every lanyard, every coffee mug in the break room. They saw the video. They suspended fired her on Tuesday and terminated her by the end of that same week, citing conduct incompatible with the standards of the profession. Then the State Board of Nursing opened a formal investigation into whether a woman who had shoved a disabled person onto concrete in front of 60 witnesses and led a crowd in chanting at her was fit to hold a license to care for vulnerable patients. Her fiancé quietly called off the engagement and moved out of their apartment. Her friends stopped answering her texts one by one, and her name, typed into any search bar by any future employer or landlord or date, returned the same 30-second clip forever at the top of the results. The nurse who pushed her disabled sister out of a wheelchair. My mom called me 3 weeks after the reunion. She's living in her car, Avery, she said, and she was crying. She lost the apartment. She can't get hired anywhere, not with that video out there with her face on it. She's your sister. Isn't there anything you can do? Like what, Mom? Call the prosecutor. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. Tell them you forgive her. They'll listen to you. It wasn't a misunderstanding, I said again, gently as I could. She assaulted me in front of 60 people while I was already disabled and already on the ground. That's not a mistake she made. That's a choice she made out loud with her hands. So you're just going to stand by and let your own sister's entire life be destroyed. I thought about that for a long moment, looking down at my legs, at the brace, at the chair. No, I said. I'm going to let her live with the consequences of the thing she chose to do. Those aren't the same, and I'm done pretending they are. She hung up without saying goodbye. The settlement came 4 months later. Danielle pleaded guilty to aggravated battery and took 2 years of probation, 400 hours of community service, court-mandated anger management, and a suspended sentence that would land on her the second she put a foot out of line. The civil suit settled for $143,000. Medical bills, pain and suffering, future therapy, and punitive damages with my name on them. She would be paying it down out of whatever work she could find for the rest of her natural life. And in March, the State Board of Nursing made its decision and made it permanent. Revoked. 11 years she had spent becoming someone whose entire job, whose whole identity, was caring for people who couldn't care for themselves. And she lost every bit of it in the 4 seconds it took her to decide that my pain was a performance staged for her inconvenience. Margaret Liu called me the afternoon the last document was signed and filed. It's done, she said. All of it. How does that feel? I looked out my window for a while before I answered her. They believe me now, I said. That's all I ever wanted out of any of this. For them to believe me. They'll never be able to forget it either, she said. No, they wouldn't.